So my topic today is, as Dr. Dai said, I'm really into instructional leadership. And my topic today is really looking at where we are now in instructional leadership. But it's important to understand that my experience in this is perhaps going to be slightly different. So I'll try to provide a measured presentation. One of them that looks at the technology that's already out there, that's being used in online settings to assess students' learning. But I'll also zero in on the specific contextual challenges that exist within the Jamaican um, atmosphere and try to provide some discussion on that, provide some uh, tools and tips and hacks within that context, because that is quite important as I present that what I share is meaningful, useful, and practical. So part of it will be, as I said, talking about just the technology that's out there, but then I'll zero in on the Jamaican context to give you some ideas about what you can do in your own context. So we're assessing students in online learning, all right? So as Dr. Dice mentioned, yes, I am Jamaican. I'm from St. Mary. I'm from Anotabia, proud son of Anotabia and St. Mary High School. So I always want to connect to that because that means a lot to me. Because that's where most, if not all, of my learning happened around the lane in Anotabia. So I learned so much, and that has been part of the experience that has shaped the person that I am today. So I always want to hark back to my island home and my little community, Anatolia, when I'm out on the scene. So as usual, if you want to get involved as I present, you have the opportunity to use the chat window. You can tweet. I do enjoy a good tweet from time to time. My Twitter handle is @mathda, and that math there reveals my connection to mathematics, because I have been teaching mathematics that's really where I started my professional experience and then move on into leadership. So @mathda is my Twitter, and certainly you can reach out to me through email if that helps, if you need to follow up with anything. So our goals today, there are two real goals that I have in mind. One of them is to explore the importance of assessment just in the learning process. And this is really an exploration rather than a session that is looking at telling you about assessments, just to kind of bring that as the basis for the conversation so that we have a launch pad for further discourse. And then consider how learning in the online environment can be assessed using a variety of tools. So that in itself is the focus for this session. So I want to have a look at, in the online environment, if we have to assess what are the kind of strategies, what tools are out there, and how can we adapt, be agile in that scenario. So that's kind of like the basis of how this session will flow. We must always be mindful of the context in which this is happening. This is not a normal situation. It is a situation that has been placed on us due to the impact of a disease that has spread across the world and is now affecting life in every part of the world. And up to now, up to recent, this is 10 million plus people has passed away. So at all times, we have to be mindful that these rapid changes and this kind of conversation that we're having now, even in a Jamaican concept, may not have happened, nowhere, even in the great US of A, if COVID hadn't happened, because we might have just carried on and believed that it would be too expensive to consider some of these things that we're doing now in education. So it's a context that we're dealing with. I found this meme online and I thought it would be interesting to share because it really provides an interesting context to where we're going with this. It says 2019, mobile not allowed in school. And that is interesting because that was one of the biggest debates I have participated in, whether students should have mobile phones in school and to what extent. And that's a clear split for many educators, the idea that they shouldn't have it because it's a distraction. And there are many who felt that it's a tool that should be in school. Come 2020, few months into COVID, and we're told that you can't come to school. Now you have to use your mobile. So that in itself provides a real challenge when COVID is gone about our views on mobile phones, given that now a lot of the learning that we're doing is delivered on a mobile phone. So I thought this was interesting to share because I think it provides a nice framework for us to think about where we go after this. So the current situation in education across the world, but I'm certain that in Jamaica you'll find this as well. As I said, I'll give you a kind of backdrop so you understand where I'm coming from with this. But I also want you to leave with some understanding of what's happening in the world. So I recently read this report that looked at education students in the world. And the US has over 51 million students in education, children in education. And yet they all fall within the same patterns that you see in a Jamaican context. So there is a set of them which is fully connected. Yeah, quite a large number, I think 35 million. So roughly about 70% is fully connected, meaning they have sufficient internet, like broadband, connection, and they have an adequate device, like a laptop or a computer. So quite large number is about 70% is fully connected. Then there's another set that is fully disconnected. They do not have a device that is adequate, and they do not have internet that is sufficient, meaning the internet speeds or the access to data affects them being able to participate in distance learning, online learning environments. That's a reality in the US, yeah? Device deficient, meaning they have a device that they may have good enough access to internet, but the device that they're accessing the internet with is not suitable for internet, for online or distance learning practices. So for example, they may have a mobile phone. So in the research, a mobile phone is considered to be a deficient device because it lacks many of the opportunities for access to certain websites and certain, not necessarily websites, certain programs may not run appropriately on a mobile phone. And then there's the idea of being internet insufficient, meaning they have access to internet, but maybe intermittently. Maybe it's on data packages, maybe it's dial-up. There are still people in the US with dial-up. Now, as I speak about, this is really a US context I'm speaking about, but I'm certain that within Jamaica, there will be different proportions of students that fall within fully connected, fully disconnected, device deficient, internet insufficient. Up to recently, I was in a conversation with some teachers from Jamaica, and we were exploring this very same idea. And it was not even a rural split or a traditional school, non-traditional school split, because we had an example where one teacher who had the experience of working in two different schools, one in a more urban setup, traditional, and another in a traditional school, but in a more rural setup. And the disparity was stark. So, the internet insufficiency and the device deficiency led to strategies that were bespoke to the situation that they were in. So it's a big question about how do we know, and each teacher within this session may have different experiences. So I hope that the session that I go through will provide something for everyone. And if it's not addressing you at the time, just bear with me, because it's really a complex scenario. But keep these ideas in mind: internet insufficient and device deficient. So as we talk about assessment, you will come across two terms that are common in the educational vernacular, the jargon: formative and summative. Now, when we talk about assessment, for many, sometimes the term summative, the summative assessment is the one that comes to mind, the test at the end of the lesson. Now, and the big assessment, the one that you get the marks for, and students are techniques many times pretty much motivated to focus on that assessment, the summative assessment, the one that they know will be the one that gives them the mark. So that normally affects their participation in class and affects their interaction in class and affects their thinking, because they might think, I can study for the exam the night before. So the summative takes on a high priority. The problem with the summative in the distance learning environment is that by the time, because we're in a very complex, unfamiliar environment, it's difficult, really almost maybe irresponsible of us to plan learning and then wait until the assessment time to know if students had learned. When we could maybe get away with that in the face-to-face, online it really is risky given the different modalities that students are experiencing learning, and given the fact that teachers are new to this and the resources that we might be using are new, and we might be converting resources, might be teaching in an unfamiliar way. It is more important for us to focus on assessment as we go along, assessment for learning, assessment as we're teaching. And so formative, which as teachers we would be doing normally, becomes even more important. And so the formative assessment is the simple things that we would be doing in assessment, like, very short, small quizzes, find what do they know very quickly. Students work in books, you'd walking around, see what they're doing in their books in a normal face-to-face setting. You could do formal tests, as I mentioned. Some of them could be graded, some doesn't have to be graded. Question and answer, the back and forth with students. It could be either your, tennis questioning, you ask a question, they answer, you ask them again, they respond, you ask another question, and you can go from one student to the other. Or you could be basketball in your question, like you're bouncing it around, everybody gets to answer and respond to each other as the questions and create these discussions going. But that's happening in the face-to-face setting in class, listening in on group discussions as they're talking, you're hearing what they're saying, you can say, oh, I hear what you're saying, participate as you walk around the class. Students can present so you can hear what they're saying. Reflection, you can ask them what they're thinking, you can ask them to write what they're thinking, you can ask them to speak, present what they're thinking. You can use signals, thumbs up, thumbs down, traffic lights, yes, no cards, red card, yellow card, green cards. You can do a number of things in the face-to-face settings. And certainly as they leave to go to another class, you can use exit tickets to know what they've learned. Now in the normal setting, this is, the commonplace. And if we're talking about assessment, I'd be saying, are you doing these in your normal classroom? Because these are important things to be doing in the normal classroom setting. But we are in abnormal times. And so the big question now is, if these were important in the normal classroom, how do we take these very same strategies and bring them into the formal, the distance learning classroom? Because these are important still. And even more so when the child isn't present in your room. How do you ensure that we do some of these in our classroom so that we know that learning is happening and ensure that students are making progress when they are in with us? Now, one of the challenges we face with online is it synchronous? Am I teaching directly and they are listening and participating in real time? Or am I teaching and then they're going to access this some point later, whether it's 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later? Or am I teaching online with them, but they are accessing it at their own pace, but we are not really connected in terms of time-wise. We're just like, I've gotten it, I'll do it. And they present work later in their own time. So there are a lot of little issues that may be happening here. But the main thing is that these are important to be doing in a normal setting to keep track of what's happening with the learning. So we still need to assess. It's how do we bring this into the online space? So how do I know that students are making progress in my online classroom? It's a new space, it's a complex space, it is a challenging space. And for students and for teachers, it is a new area to be in. So as a teacher, my big question would be, how do I know that when I do this, my students are learning? And this is not even the ones who can't access it, but the ones who just access it. If they could get full access to what I do, How do I know that they would be learning? And so it's important that we keep that in mind as a teacher, because as a teacher, that's really what you want to know. Are they making progress? And this is where the formative assessment can help. So there are many, many tools out there. And so one of the things I wanted to do is kind of give a broad brush approach to saying there are many tools. So if your child if your students are fully connected, it's important that you are aware of the kind of tools that are out there. And I'll go through one or two of these later, but just the simple tools. Now, I know that, for example, most teachers are now getting training in Google resources. One simple tool that can be deployed with great success, very easy to use, connected to Google emails, is Google Forms. And today's session is not to go through them, but just so you're aware that you can make simple quizzes in Google Form, simply interface, easy for students to access, easy to set up systems that provide marks, identify correct answers, give them instant feedback. Google Forms, very, very good. There's a similar product online. It's not Google, but students can access it even on their mobiles. It's called Quizlet. And in that, teachers can create their own quizzes, create flashcards, create study games for mobiles, as well as for laptops and different other tools that students can use, tablets. Kahoot is game-based, where students can participate and have fun. There's a challenge in it about working at speed. This is another tool that if your students are fully connected at good internet access, it works on mobiles as well. And you'll have to create the tasks. Socrative is good with questions and real-time grading. So as students work through it, you could look at this. Mentimeter, create quizzes and tests, manage student expectation, engage students. These are all free. That's a point. All of these are free, but not all of them might be accessible depending on your student population. But as teachers, you quite likely will have maybe a laptop or a tablet. And so you might have access to these resources. It's good to check them out. Some of them do the same that others do. Some are a little different. Some suit your personality. Some you may have a look at and you say, I prefer this one because it matches my teaching style. I understand it. Some you may find better resources on YouTube to explain how to use them. But the point is these are quite helpful. And in any of the schools in the world right now, you'd find at least one or two of these being used quite confidently by teachers with students as a way of reaching out and addressing formative assessment as lessons are happening. So you could pause and send one of these and say, tell me what's going on, and do this. There are other tools that look at feedback, like trying to get students to share how they're learning. Because remember, if it's a synchronous classroom, then you could just say speak. But given what I've heard and what I've seen, it's quite likely that your classrooms may not be synchronous. So you have to find ways of giving students time to get information back to you. And in that sense, you maybe can listen to them later and then feedback to them even in those spaces. One of the products that I've found very, very interesting is one called Flipgrid. Now, as I said, I'm not going to teach you how to do Flipgrid today because that's going to take a little bit of a time. You will have to find the time to go. But the easy part of Flipgrid is that you send students a link, they click on the link, and it prompts them to do a recording. They do the recording, and as soon as they do the recording, it is saved in a space that you as a teacher could go back to and look at it. So you could give them a prompt question. It could be math and ask them to explain how they work through a problem. You could get all your classes to respond, and you could go back and just listen to them. You could set the time, how long they have to respond for. So they may have a minute and a half. And so in that minute and a half, they would just speak. And it could be in any subject area. You could just set the question and say speak. And then later as a teacher, you could log into the space and you see all your students' responses. You could listen. You could then provide an oral feedback when they're finished, or you could grade it. You could do a number of things there, even afterwards. So Flipgrid is really a powerful tool. And the good thing about Flipgrid, as against them doing a WhatsApp, for example, or a video on their phone and sending you, is to overcome the issue of the issue of internet speeds, because then either they will fill yours with lots of videos, or they will have an issue storing those videos on their devices, using up the spaces on the devices. Flipgrid keeps that in a remote space. Formative is good. It gives live assessment as well. Grade them, give immediate feedback, similar to Flipgrid. Peer Deck is one that's quite popular as well. This is more, you can produce lessons within Peer Deck. And if students have smartphones, this is a good one. But there's a learning curve for this. Again, another one that's useful for mobile phones is Nyko, make quizzes that students can take on mobile devices. VoiceThread is great because you can create discussions around documents, videos, and other materials. Again, these are just a range of resources that's out there that for teachers, which are free. They're all free. COVID made a lot of them free, but many were free before COVID. And in that sense, you can create, the good thing about this is that many of these tools, even after COVID, when students are face-to-face, you can still use them. You know, students can still go home if they have the right devices, which many of them will do right after COVID, is that you can still use them. It's not a case where we're using them just because of COVID, but due to the fact that we are in COVID, we can certainly use it to enhance our assessment practices at the moment. So these are some other tools. Padlet is lovely. Padlet is a nice space for them to do like a sticky note. You could ask questions and just ask everyone to place a sticky note. The good thing here, they can use a number of different media formats to respond, with pictures, with videos, their own videos or videos online. They can put text as well. Loom is one that I've come to know quite recently. It's about recording yourself. So if you wanted to do a screen recording, Loom is great for that. Many laptops will come with screen recording, and tablets as well. So, but Loom is great because it allows you to edit, and it depends on what you like. Edmodo has been around for a while. It's like it's almost like, from what I understand, many people are training Google Classroom. So if you have Google Classroom, it's similar to Google Classroom. Edpuzzle is a lovely one because if you're using YouTube videos or Khan Academy, Edpuzzle is great because what Edpuzzle does is allow you to stop the videos and put questions on it. You could set mini assessments in Edpuzzle, and the videos you can stop them and put questions. So as students are watching the video, you could use it to engage in questioning and formative assessment as well. So if you send the video to them and set it up like that, you can use it as an assessment tool as they watch the video. In that way, you can ensure that they're actually watching the video, because their feedback will give you some ideas about their progress through the video. So these are more tools. So at the same time, remember that this is not me telling you to use all of these. My point is there are a lot of tools out there for teachers to use to assess learning online. But as I said, one of the things that I've found as I start to speak with teachers in Jamaica, I'm realizing that the context, not surprisingly, is different for many teachers and certainly varied. So as I went through the first part of this presentation, it was about the use of, students are receiving the work on laptop, they have good connection, they have good access to the technology, and you as well as teachers have good connection and using something like a laptop to provide the learning. So in that sense, you should be exploring these tools and using them as much as possible in conjunction with your Google Classroom, because the Google Classroom has a setup as a classroom, but it doesn't provide the kind of resources that would ensure that you can keep them engaged as well and prepare them for the and reach them where they're at, because most of these students will be on smartphones, playing games on their Nintendos and on their Xboxes, and are used to a kind of innovative, interactive experience. So it's an opportunity to throw those into the mix. But how might learning be assessed in an online environment? Certainly we have shared a few of the tools that you can use to address those. They're numerous, maybe a million of them. But what about when your students have a device that is deficient? It's not good enough. You have good resources. You could access all of what I'm sharing today, but your students will receive this on a device like a mobile phone. What about when they may have a good device, but the internet is insufficient? It's not good enough. Someone may say, yeah, that's okay. But I also have students who have not one of these conditions. They have both. They have a device that is deficient and their internet is insufficient, meaning they're on a mobile phone and they can only receive information, not too much. If it's too much, it's not going to work. It can't be synchronous because it will be too much load on the data plans, or they may be even living in an area where the internet is quite slow. So how do I overcome that? Now, one of the things that has been coming through in my conversations with teachers is WhatsApp is the way that many people are overcoming this challenge. So I want to spend the last part of this presentation just going through some of the strengths of WhatsApp and try to move it into from being, I have to just use WhatsApp, to I use WhatsApp and I'm using WhatsApp as an educator, and I'm deriving great value and great benefits for my students. And I believe that I can use this as a tool for learning. It's funny because as I read the research, I've read a number of research that were produced from 2014, 2015 about using WhatsApp as a technology for learning. So given the advances in WhatsApp now, it's great that people knew this was the case. So it's not a case where WhatsApp cannot be used. It's about how can we use it effectively. So part of this presentation is really looking at leveraging WhatsApp as an effective tool for learning. And as we use WhatsApp, we learn to become more efficient with WhatsApp. So the challenge that we face for many, many teachers would be that their students will have a device that's efficient, a mobile phone, and they're accessing the learning using an internet capability that is insufficient. So they're on a mobile phone, but perhaps a smartphone can receive WhatsApp messages, can receive pictures and videos, they can hear voice notes, they can participate through text, they can listen to music, listen to audio, they can watch videos, and so on. So they have access to it. The difficulty on a smartphone with low internet connection is that synchronous behavior isn't possible. But WhatsApp has a few tools up its sleeves. And so I want to take them apart a little bit to give you the whole picture on WhatsApp so that you can use it even more effectively if you aren't. And also, if you're using it, to realize that this is a legitimate tool of learning that is being experimented in many universities and many schools in the world as a way of learning. So it's not a case where you have to use WhatsApp, but I have WhatsApp. Let's make it happen. So as I said, we're going to spend a little time talking about the mobile phone and WhatsApp. So WhatsApp has a number of tools that we use. One that many, many people get onto WhatsApp for is WhatsApp messaging, the text version of it. And then people use it to make calls as well. Over time, we start to use it to make calls. The good thing about WhatsApp messaging is that if you have access like Wi-Fi, WhatsApp doesn't charge you to use WhatsApp. The internet provider may charge you. So if you have Wi-Fi at home, WhatsApp is perfect, doesn't cost you anything. If you have data plans, there are many companies that offer data plans that even offer free WhatsApp usage, many. But I don't know what's the case in Jamaica on this, but it certainly doesn't use up all of your data compared to other programs. WhatsApp allows you to share documents, PDFs, pictures. You can share links. WhatsApp allows you to share documents. So a lot of teachers, from what I understand, is using WhatsApp to distribute material. So if they have worksheets, they send it to WhatsApp. The students may print it or copy it into their book and then take a picture and they send it back. So a lot of the work that I've heard when I discuss this with teachers is around WhatsApp documents being shared and students sharing it back with teachers to see it via WhatsApp. Now, WhatsApp has other features which I feel that we can be, there's WhatsApp Web. Now, WhatsApp Web is where you can actually set WhatsApp up on your laptop. You can use it to be more effective, because then if you have resources on your desktop, on your computer, you can copy those into WhatsApp on WhatsApp Web, and then students can receive those much easier than you trying to convert it onto WhatsApp. So WhatsApp Web is really a tool I'd say every teacher must always have open, have their WhatsApp Web ready, because everything that you do, you can get them on the internet, and then you copy them into the normal WhatsApp, and students will receive it normally. So WhatsApp Web is really a powerful tool as a teacher if you're going to be really effective and efficient on WhatsApp. So I'd recommend anyone to have WhatsApp Web. And the setup for that is quite straightforward. You just have to check online or just check in WhatsApp. Whenever you open WhatsApp, those three dots, once you open those three dots, you'll see these options for WhatsApp Web. And the process is quite straightforward if you have a mobile phone. WhatsApp allows you to star messages. So students can star messages. You can teach them to star messages that are important. And then whenever they go in WhatsApp starred messages, they'll see those messages again. So it doesn't get lost in the conversation. WhatsApp group, a lot of people have set up WhatsApp group, and that's a useful tool to maintain a classroom setting. And many, many teachers, from what I hear, uses WhatsApp group. But then I'm going to also throw in another one in the mix, WhatsApp broadcast, which I believe, from my experience and the anecdotal evidence I've collected, to be underused. And I think it's one of the more powerful tools in WhatsApp broadcast. Now, to get to your WhatsApp broadcast, you need to, so I think these are some of the powerful pieces of WhatsApp, and I'm going to spend a little time now breaking these down to talk to you how these can lead into online assessment of learning. So one of the things I said that's really powerful is WhatsApp broadcast. Now, if you're not using this as a teacher and you are reaching students on WhatsApp, this is the way to do it. This is really a powerful tool that is really an underused tool. So to set it up, it's quite straightforward. Those three buttons that I mentioned, you look at those three buttons and it says new broadcast. Now, what WhatsApp broadcast does, and then it's easy to set up after that. You select the students you want to be in that broadcast, and then you click the check mark, and then they're in your broadcast. Now, I want to give you a contrast between what WhatsApp group does and what WhatsApp broadcast does. Now, when you set up a WhatsApp group, you get a common chat for all group members, like a classroom. So you're sitting in your classroom, your students are all there. Everything each student says, they can hear. So you can add and remove group members. You're not in my class, you're in my class. You can decide in a group whether students are allowed to talk, communicate or not. You can make global settings in a group. And everyone can communicate with everyone. So every time someone types something in the group, everyone in that group can see who is in that group. They can see what they said, they can interact with what they said. They can be, everyone send a voice note, everyone can hear it. If you send feedback in that group to individuals, they all can hear it. If you send it to the group, they all can hear it. But it is a lovely tool to maybe share information that you want everyone to participate in. And if you're having a discussion, it's a lovely tool for a discussion as well. But WhatsApp broadcast gives you something else. Now, WhatsApp broadcast allow you to set up a list of students. So you could, I would say every teacher should set up their group list, but they also should set up a broadcast list with all students in their class. Because when you send a broadcast, what it does, it creates a private message between you and all the students individually. So imagine that you wanted to send something to the students, but you didn't want to put it in the group. So you knew that you needed to ask a question. So a good example is this. You're in your class and you wanted to check for understanding. So you ask a question, and the question you're asking, you want to know what they'll, so you might just say something like, describe the process of photosynthesis, or you may put a question on the board in math and say, what do you think the answer is? Or write your response and send a picture to this. Now, students in a group, if you're using WhatsApp, could very well, if there are 30 or 40 students, one, you're gonna get 40 responses. Two, if they all respond, that is. The second part of it is some student may look at other students' responses and then do theirs. It's natural, they might think that. You say, what's the capital of Jamaica? And everyone, one person write Kingston and everyone go Kingston, 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 Kingston. But they're all seeing what each other is doing. And so as a teacher, you're not able to ascertain whether that child was thinking and came up with that answer or whether they were thinking on their own. But in WhatsApp broadcast, you can do this. And rather than, the way you would try to overcome this is maybe to send the same question to each student individually. In WhatsApp broadcast, if you have students in a broadcast list and you put a question in that broadcast, so you send this question to the broadcast, each student receives this question in their private message individually. So it's really their own message, as if you were communicating with them personally. Now, the other side of it is that people in a broadcast list does not know that they're in a broadcast list. They just feel like you've just sent them a personal message. And so their response to you is in that personal message. So if you ask the question, what is the capital of Kingston? And you send it in a group message, everybody will type Kingston in the group chat. But if you send it to them in a broadcast list, you'll get, if it's 40 students, you'll see 40 messages responses with each child typing their individual response in that message. And so you'll see quickly the ones who didn't know the answer because they can't know what others were doing. And so you can then carry on your lesson, your voice note, to address any differences, or you can then respond to those students later individually, because now you see what the thinking is. You always have that reference point. Likewise, you could ask a question and you could say to them, respond with a voice note with your, what do you think it is? Again, when they respond, because you use a broadcast list, you're not exposing the kids to the ridicule perhaps of others, or them sharing their ideas for students to take it and say, okay, I'll add this idea to mine. What you're doing is saying, tell me what you think in a voice note. And they all send back a voice note, but it comes back to you in individual messages. So one of the real advantages of broadcast this is that you don't have to send 40 individual messages if you wanted to communicate with students individually. You can set up a broadcast list. Likewise, in WhatsApp groups, you may set up small groups of different learners and their capabilities. So you may have a group of students which are your, say, fast learners, your middle learners, and your students we know you need support. In WhatsApp group, you set that up. If they're talking with each other, they will see what they're saying. But you could also set up a WhatsApp broadcast for the same groups, because you might want to send something to them individually at times, so that you can get feedback to see how they're progressing individually as well as with the group. So there is a bit of a setup that teachers will have to do. But I think if you're thinking about really trying to recreate the online assessment atmosphere where you can know what individual students actually know, you can then use broadcast lists as a real powerful tool. And as I said, it shows up in your regular WhatsApp chat. And the other part, so it really, really bridges that gap for you. Just a few WhatsApp fonts. One of the things that I would recommend is that you try and set your lessons up really like objectives and so on. And if you want to use little fonts, WhatsApp doesn't allow us to use colors, but you can either type it on a screen, take a screenshot and paste the question in the message, or you could use some of the tricks that are in WhatsApp. So if you want something to be bold in WhatsApp, you just put asterisk around your message, it will come up bold. If you wanted it to be italics, you can use the underscore to bring that up. So some tips for WhatsApp: be aware that, you're more aware than I am, that students are having challenges with internet. So be careful the stuff that you're sharing. If you have videos, it's best not to send the full video. WhatsApp has a restriction on video size. So YouTube is the right way to go around this, or you can change format. There's a lot of programs online showing you to change format from maybe MP4 to like TIF and those formats which use less space. But YouTube, upload it to YouTube and then give them the link. And so they can watch that video later on YouTube when they have when it's loaded. Be aware that students are doing subjects with you, but if they are getting, and you have to be careful that they don't have there are a lot of subjects that they're facing. So can you imagine the overload? So we have to be careful about the number of videos we share, because then if they have a lot of videos from different teachers, then it just slows your device down, really slows your device down. So schools on a whole need to think deeply about how they're going to be using this. That's why I said YouTube is a place to save your videos. There's a lot to learn there. You don't have to put your videos so people can see them. You can just literally put them on YouTube and make them private, then unlist them. No one can see them unless they have the link. And that way you can manage your own personal feeling about what you want to show online. Use a template, structure your classes. Make sure that your classes isn't just a set of resources for them to follow. Set objectives, start the lesson, let them know you're going to start the lesson this time. Set objectives. If you're using PowerPoint slides, don't put all the slides at once, just slide. Maybe if it's asynchronous, one slide, do your voice note for that slide. Another slide, do your voice note for that slide. If you're seeking interaction, you need to then go to your broadcast if you want them to respond to a question and so on. Just keep that in mind. Structure your classes and your reflection. Structure it so that the students can see that this is a process. Even if it's asynchronous, try and walk them through a process as you design the lesson. If you want them to respond to anything, walk them through that process as well. One thing I've seen in the data, it's good to have students who are your group leaders. They can help you with attendance rather than you having to check who's here. They can go through the list and see who's present. You know, you can appoint group leaders if you have small groups. One of the things about groups as well, WhatsApp allows up to 8 people to be connected in a call. In groups that may have been extended. The last time I checked, it was 8. And it means that you could set students off in their groups to work on something. But as a teacher, you can always ring into that group and speak to only those students just in that group in a WhatsApp call. And you have the 8 students and you could discuss something. If it's your, say, your slower learner, you can talk to them. It's your other learners, you can talk with them. You might have given them differentiated work. So you can then pop into the group and say, hey, how are you getting on? Or they're just working on the same task, but in different groups. So one of the things that I'd say for teachers is to spend a bit of time thinking about what groups you want the students to be in. So as you start delivering the learning, you can then say, I'm going to use this group and that group to ensure. Try and create mutually exhaustive groups. So like when you create a set of group, at all times you cover all your students so that you know that you have 5 groups that cover all students or 4 groups that cover all students. And that way, when you're assigning work, you can always use that as a way of distributing your students and your tasks. But bear that in mind. Group behavior, always set a code of conduct. Every teacher, always, the school rules are always clear. But in WhatsApp, you should always set your code of conduct. Should people be typing or not typing? You can disable them. You can, when you're running a lesson and you don't want typing, as an admin for the group, you can always ensure that nobody can type by going into admin and selecting that no one can type except admin. You don't have individual settings, but you can make students admin in the interim if you want to, if you trust them to type. But as a rule, you could say, I'm presenting some information now for the next 5 minutes. No one will be allowed to type, so just listen to the information, partake with the information. I'll resume your typing function later. You can do that, but you can close that to stop them typing in the group, to not spam the group per se. But establish a code of conduct, and that could be something you begin every lesson with. What are our agreed behaviors in this space? Similar to a classroom, but different, you're not seeing them. So you have to have something to hold them accountable to. Voice notes to support slides, I mentioned that. Small group discussions, I mentioned that. Really calling into a small group and saying, you know, I'm checking in, how you guys doing? Spend 5 minutes, and another group 5 minutes, find out what's going on. Is really a nice way of assessing what's happening in that space, because you could have already questions you want to ask, get them to feedback to you, but it doesn't disturb the other ones. So in that sense, you're allowed to have even conversations. It's like a small whispering conversation with students. Likewise, you know, as I said with WhatsApp broadcast, you can send a specific question to certain kids and say, hey, how is it going for you? You know, and they could respond to you and you can keep that going. Picture sizes, try and think about that, you know, what sizes you're using, that use of spaces if you're not being very clever with that. So as I said with WhatsApp, there's a real opportunity to personalize feedback, because now you can contact each student on their own, but you can also ask them to give you reflections personally as well. You can go back to that later. But you can certainly reach them one-to-one and say, hey, you know, can you tell me this? And then as they feedback, you can respond. Individualized responses, certainly with broadcast, you can set that up by asking prompt questions and then getting them to feedback to you. Differentiation by group, I spoke about that. You can set up small groups based on the kind of range of learning or what you want them to focus on. So you can differentiation by group. You can then call into those groups, or you can put resources into those groups only. So not only the large class group, but small groups. So you can always get to those kids, you know, whenever you want to diversify what you're doing, you know, try and create those groups. And remember, differentiation by task, because you can then put specific tasks in those groups. Rather than put everything into the one group chat and say, this is for this student and that for this student. Delayed voice response, that's the power of this. You can then feedback later, send them a voice note. As a teacher, a voice note is maybe a lot easier than to type. And then people can listen to those voice notes later. They can star it, they can go back to it. You can tell them, you can also tell them which piece of information to star, because you're allowing them to create their notes on their phone so they can go back to it and start. Also think deeply about how you name things, and name groups so that you can find things easily. Start messages, I mentioned that. install WhatsApp Web. If you haven't done this yet, install it on your laptop because it's really a powerful tool to support learning in WhatsApp. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time trying to take WhatsApp apart so that would be up to you. So the next thing that I'm going to do, Dr. Dice, I've set up a nice little game online to show you one of them, Kahoot. So I wanted to do a Kahoot with the people who are present, if they're still there after my presentation.
Yeah, we have quite a lot.
And what I'm going to do is give you the link for it and then share screen. And then we'll see how that goes, yeah? So,
yeah.
Because Kahoot is a nice one for teachers to use if they're not using that at the moment. So
you can share your screen. I don't know if you can hold over 600 people, but you can share your screen, and once you see about 10 or 12 names on the Gemini, on the Kahoot, then you can just start playing.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm coming back into the room here, and I'm going to give you the link for the Kahoot, yeah?
Well, you don't really have to, well, maybe, all right, yeah, give me the link, but you know the little code that you have.
Yeah, but they need to go to the Kahoot.it. So that's the main thing. They need to go to
Kahoot.it. Display all of it, and they'll see it.
Okay, no problem,
yeah.
no problem.
Yes.
I'll do that. So let me just find my.
So everybody access your Kahoot app on your phones or any device that you're using.
Let me just make sure that
Dr. Barker can run a game with you guys.
Yeah, and Kahoots are really quite easy to set up. Just need to make sure that I'm finding the right slide. What's it called?
I appreciate everybody in the chat. They're dropping very informative comments. Some people have been using WhatsApp and I've been exploring different options, Dr. Barker. Some people said that it's very informative and educative presentations that you provide here, and that they haven't heard so much about WhatsApp or the technology types that you have. So very, very good, very informative.
All right, so it should be showing on screen now.
Yes, totally. Can you change the music?
I'm gonna kill my music.
No, don't kill it. Change it to reggae.
They will have it on their phone, so it's okay.
Okay.
So it should show the app. You need to just go to www.kahoot.it and it will ask you
for somebody logged in already.
People are signing up.
Yeah.
And this is a very easy quiz. It's just a fun quiz. It's just to get people using it, to experience it as a user. And so people are coming in. I'll give it, give it a minute and then I'm going to start. So if you miss the start, then you just won't get the prize that Dr. Dice is giving to the person who wins.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so people are signing up. That's great. So students who are using mobile phones, this is a lovely way in the middle of a lesson. You could just go straight to a Kahoot to see what they're doing. Now, the main thing here is that most of these resources are teacher-created resources. So it's best for you to make your own stuff. So you plan your lessons like normal, but now you're going to go, in the middle of this lesson, I'm going to do a Kahoot. And I'm going to get my kids to log in. I want to see, it's a check-in. And you can be really creative with Kahoot, ask really deep questions as well. I haven't put any really deep questions on this, but you can put the most creative questions, and there are a range of types of questions that when we finish a Kahoot, I can pretty much open it up and kind of just get a quick 1 minute so through a Kahoot. All right, so when we get to 100, I'll get started. Is that okay?
Totally.
Okay.
That will be in a second.
We've passed 100 now. It's going fast. I don't want to leave anyone behind.
They can join late too. They can
join
share the screen.
All right, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So I'm going to start the Kahoot. It's easy. So if you miss it, you're going to miss some very easy questions just to get used to using it. Yeah. All right. So mobile phones ready. and question 1 at 150. So this one is about Jamaica. All right, so some easy questions. How many parishes are there in Jamaica? You have to select your answers very, very quickly. If you don't select your answers, you have 20 seconds. They get points for being the first to do it. So very easy questions, nothing to stress about.
Yeah. Yeah, 5 seconds.
Now, when you do a Kahoot, instantly what happens with Kahoot is that it gives you instant feedback about where students are. So at the moment, we have 71 students who know that there are 14 parishes in Jamaica. We may have students here who may have pressed the wrong thing, quite likely. Sometimes people might press the wrong thing because they're trying to go fast. But here you would see, as a teacher, where students might have selected the wrong answer. And you could have a conversation about this right here. You could say, well, you know, why did someone select 11? You could have a conversation here. If it's a known misconception, you could talk a little bit more about it, because sometimes that's what happens. So it's not just about the answer. You can use this now to provide instant feedback to students as they give their feedback. But it's still a game. So we still need to know who's winning. So at the moment, Nikki McBee with 975 is at the top. Tanisha is second. Winsome is in third. Levy is in fourth. And C. Williams is tied. So not only have I gotten a game experience going on, I've also addressed a top part of the teaching that I've been doing, and I've given feedback to my students. So now I've assessed the learning and I'm giving feedback on this. Okay, so now I'm moving to my next question. So continuing, what is the capital of Hanover? Easy questions.
10 seconds.
Wow, these are like quick on the draw.
Yeah.
And we have Lucy. So we have someone who selected wait a bit, yeah? Yeah, so we talk about that again. You talk about that with your students. The other part of it is, as a teacher, you're seeing how your information is going through. You can think, okay, it's clear that, you know, this information is correct. There is a group of students. And if you can identify those students later, you can follow up if it's something that is really a misconception in your WhatsApp groups or your WhatsApp broadcasts. And we have lost Nikki McBee. She's dropped into second. Tanisha has moved into first.
Yes.
Fast on the draw. Let's go. Yeah. In what year was Jamaica declared independent?
Oh, this one is easy. Ten seconds.
Some of my friends would say, by who?
Yes.
So this is a question, as a teacher, I'm expecting everybody to get right. I'm like, yes. And then I go, I still have some students who still haven't gotten it yet. A large majority is there. But in 1962, Jamaica was made an independent nation. And, you know, we have lots of things that happen at different times. I could ask my students in my WhatsApp group now, I could say, anyone want to tell me why you chose this answer? Did anyone who chose that answer? I can have a conversation going there, you know, and I could spend another 10 minutes here because I'm getting live feedback. I can now use this to deliver the learning in a more meaningful way because I can support the students who are. So while I'm in the game, I'm not just running the game. I'm using it as a teaching moment all the time. So the other part of it is writing deep questions to really push this boundary. So you can write really solid questions like, which of these do not apply? Which of these is not an example of respiration? Which of these is not? You can write really deep questions if you want. And so, we've lost Nikki Mac totally now. Pinky is making a move and RK Doubler is in the frame now. So Tanisha has some competition. Let's go. Next. 2 more questions to go. All right.
Yes.
Who won the festival song competition in 1987?
That's a hard one. That's a hard one for me.
Wow.
Whoa, whoa. This is amazing.
So first of all, most people got this wrong. And
Yes.
it's not a question about whether, but here as a teacher, you see something like this, a kind of thing, well, I clearly haven't taught this topic properly, right? You'd be like, if the knowledge is distributed equally, then it's really a probability game at the moment. It means that people just didn't get what I was trying to teach. So right now, I know I might have to reteach this because it's clear that people didn't get this. Now, the deductive approach to this is in 1987, Roy Ryan's song that one was sung, Give Thanks and Praises.
Yeah.
And the song, We Are 25. The road was rocky and the hills were steep, still we survived. So
Yes.
if we were 25, it means in 1987 we'd be 25. So the winner is Roy Ryan. So that is the way the deductive reason would come into play to figure out that it was Roy Ryan. So, but again, I can push the boundaries with the question. I can ask people to think about this. So it's not a knowledge question per se, but like, 25 years. Oh yeah, that was the year. Let's see if it lost Tanisha. Tanisha,
Yeah.
Pinky.
Pinky's in front now.
We have new people except Tanisha now. Dewar, shout out to Dewar, Simone L, and Lore. So our final question, and you can do, the other thing about Kahoot, you can make the question, I'll do a quick Kahoot page on this before I go, yeah? What's the capital of St. Andrew? Not many people know this.
Yeah. First place is up for grabs.
Yep. Maybe Crossroad.
Maybe, yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh. Wow.
So it's halfway through. I have a few people think it's Hagley Park Road, which is good. I think it is the capital of St. Andrew. Everything happens there. But yeah, so again, there's a teaching point here. So we will go to the end of the Kahoot. Let's see who won. So in third place, give a shout out to Laura. In second place, we have Tanisha, and the winner is Pinky, who came in at the very end and just rose to the top. Runners up, we have Den and Darcy. So well done, guys. So I'm going to carry on through the Kahoot so you see the kind of stuff that I can get. I can get the questions. It tells me which questions students were finding difficult. It gives me an idea about what's going on with the game. 29% correct. I can see my questions. I can see the percentage that students were getting this correct. So right away, I can make adjustments to my teaching. And the students can do this both offline and online. You can set it up as a game that's done directly. It's good, it's fun, but also you could set up a Kahoot and ask people to play this game on their own. The feedback still comes in the way that you want. They say you can get a full report. So, so you can show the performance of individual students. So it says, if I don't want people to see what each other was doing, now I know which students were getting it wrong and which ones were getting it correctly. And this is very good information for you as a teacher, because now you can see which students was getting particular questions wrong. And you could then decide to set up a WhatsApp group with just those students, or a WhatsApp broadcast with just those students, and then send a specific message to those students, or give them additional, maybe a voice note for those students specifically. So you could send those through again. So this is some of the power of this. The other thing I said I was going to do was quickly show you how to make a Kahoot if you haven't made one before, because maybe it's something that, so I'm going to change screen. So here I am in Kahoot. I have lots of Kahoots that I've made for different things. So you can find old Kahoots, but I would always encourage people to make their own, because you're going to spend a lot of time changing it. So if I said I was going to make a new one, and this is my last piece, Dr. Dice.
Okay.
Just to show people like a little bit of what's happening here if they have not used it before. It's free. So when you go, just select the free account, it'll get you in. So when you click create, it's quite straightforward. It has a number of templates, which you'll see now. But the reason why I like Kahoot is because not only is it game in your classroom, it also allows you to do a lot of quick check on what the learning is like. So you have a Kahoot, there are a number of options here. You can set these up. It's good for mobile phones. But let's say we want to create a new Kahoot, which is a test. So it's like what we just did. When you select add a question, you have a number of options, you see. You can have quiz like we just did. I did only quiz questions. You can have true or false type questions. You can have the students to type their answer. Just have to be careful here because you maybe want to make sure that there's a range of options for them because they might spell things incorrectly, or you might not have chosen a word that they might use. But like knowledge heavy subjects like science, or maybe, those might be useful. You can put puzzles in, ask players to place answers in the correct order. Poll, you can use it to do a poll. You can use it to, add different stuff. So you have a number of options here. I'm going to select quiz. And so that gives me the chance to do a question. When I get a quiz, you type your question. Hello, you know, who is the Prime Minister of, it's straightforward, of Jamaica. You see some math symbols here, squares. You can select here and you can even go further with it if you're doing math. You can get all math symbols here. So you can do math here quite easily. Currency, math, you can see square roots, all these signs are here. So you can do math here quite easily. So if you want to put math questions here, perfect. Math equation editor, squares, do nicely, it works. You can bold, you can italic stuff. You can put image. If you have a question and you wanted to put an image, if you want them to discuss something or answer a question about the image, you can upload the image. You can go into the image library and search for what they have. Lots of images are here. You can tick, you can put the image and say what feature is, so you could put that image in, and then you could ask students what feature is being displayed here if you're doing geography, and then you would have a lovely question and you can talk about that. It's really, really fantastic there. You can set the time that you want them to have for the question, 240 seconds. You can give that 4 minutes. You can say you have time to do this. You can change the points values if you wanted to by moving it back or forth. If you want points value, if you want more, it's up to you, it doesn't matter. You can make it multi-select question, so it's checklist. So what are the different features of living things, for example, and they can select from a list rather than just having to do multiple choice. You can image reveal as well. You can set that up. So time over time, so they can, to make it interesting, you could say image reveal. When you click on this, it takes a little longer and they would see the image until the image is revealed so they could see something. So you can also find questions in a question bank if you put them in a question bank. This was a quick run through on making Kahoot as a really powerful tool because it comes through nicely on the mobile phone, as you have experienced in this presentation. So certainly you can go online in YouTube. You can bring YouTube videos as well. I didn't mention that here as well. So there's a lot of things you can do. And you just click add question to make another question each time. And it will be create a lovely variety of questions. So you can actually do proper tests here as well. As the lesson is going on, you could use it to just do a test because in the end it captures the students' individual responses. You can manage the names as well by letting it give everyone a random name. And you can also delete names if kids create names that you don't think is appropriate for your classroom. So thank you for listening. Hope that was informative and helpful. And over to you, Dr. Dice.
Yes, Dr. Barker, thank you so much. It's very, very interesting. I have no words to say that will, except that it's exceptional, very informative. Quite a lot. I was looking for questions, but we don't really have questions in the chat. However, there are hundreds of comments about the presentation relating to different assessment type technology that we can use to assess students. Very informative. People said that they're going to try out the different aspects of WhatsApp so that they can engage their students. So it's very informative. Very, very good. We really appreciate the time that you take to do this this presentation. So again, if you can, you put your slide back up with your contact information, the first couple of slides with the Twitter account as well as the Gmail and
Okay,
so
I'll do
on.
that.
Yeah, so some people were asking about that for you to share again.
Oh yeah, maybe share the
Yeah.
link.
Also, guys, you, for participants, you can use this in Zoom with your students as well as Meet, but you know already that in Google Classroom, it's just data information that you put in there. You can't interact so much with Google Classroom,
Let
but
me find the slide first. Okay.
yes, but in Zoom as well as Google Meet, you can get Kahoot going with your students.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring that up now. Here we are.
Yes.
So here,
All
as I
right,
said,
there.
you can tweet. If you're a tweeting person, you can tweet at Mathter, MATHTER, or you can email me at embark30. And if you're interested, there's a Facebook group as well where we provide some of these sessions as well, called Caribbean Educators Global Perspective.
Yes. And
All right.
that group, I follow that group very well. Very informative. Dr. Barker is always on there, giving sessions as well as posting. It's not foolishness, guys. It's very strategic and educational.
Yeah, it's really
Everything on
good
there.
and all stuff. So
Yes. So it's called Caribbean Educators
yes, Caribbean Educators Global Perspective.
Global Perspective on Facebook.
Yeah, on
Caribbean
Facebook.
Educators
Just search for
Global
the group,
Perspective.
and if you, I'll then let you in.
Yes. Very informative information on there too.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And I
So
hope to, yeah, thank you.
go on, Dr. Barker.
No, no, it's okay. I'm just saying it's a lovely place to meet other educators as well.
Yes, all around the world, because Dr. Barker is in Oman, in the Middle East right now. So it's, what time is it there tomorrow morning?
It's 2:30 a.m. in the morning.
2:30 on a Monday morning right now, as we
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Barker. Dr. Barker, we want to, let's dig into some information here, everybody. Thank you. I said thank you very much. I can't thank Dr. Barker too much. Because he's always on programs with myself here. I'm going to explain a few things in a little while, but I want to say a special thank you to Miss Winter and her team earlier on for the community and school partnership part 2 of that Jaminar. It just finished before Dr. Barker came on, and they did a phenomenal job, as well as Dr. Barker. The information that you got from those two, which is recorded here and live, you will get the link out in your email in about 24 hours. You will get that, as well as you will also get your certificates if you do all of 3 things. If you register when you are coming on to watch this Jaminar and take part in the chat. So you register first of all with your first name and last name and your email address, and then fill out the evaluation form on the Jaminars. And that's number 2 you have to do. So 1, register. 2, fill out the evaluation form. And then number 3, you come onto the platform, which is jaminars.org courses. And this is Sunday, 11th of October. You watch these Jaminars, then you would have gotten the certificate maybe by tomorrow afternoon or so. Okay, so you have to do 3 things. Now remember, everybody, and spread the word. We have changed from Zoom for participants. Participants will be on jaminars.org all the time moving forward to do these types of Jaminars, because it is unlimited. Nobody will be turned away if you come on jaminars.org to access the video proceedings and also participate in the chat by posting your questions, okay? It's very unlimited. It can hold millions of people. So you have no reason not to go on if you want information, okay? So that's it for Jaminar's notification and the presentation. Coming every week we have quite a few things going on in the education task force. The Education Task Force puts on something known as virtual story time. And that virtual story time is on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Jamaica time or 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, Eastern Daylight Time for now, until daylight time changes. Okay, on Tuesdays on Facebook. It's Facebook JD Tan Facebook page, as well as the Education Task Force Facebook page, Jamaica Diaspora Education Task Force. Another thing that is on too is our EduTalk Diaspora Engagement, and that one is on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock Jamaica time or 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Okay, that one focuses on, and I'm the host of EduTalk, as well as sometimes the host of the reading program for kids, where you get a book, a reader comes on, and they read the story, and we take part in discussions. Some students get an invitation to be on there, and they take part in the discussion after listening to it. You can go on JD Tan Facebook page or the Education Task Force Facebook page, and you can see, for example, an example of the story time, virtual story time on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, as I was saying, the EduTalk Diaspora Engagement is on Jamaicans.com Facebook page, as well as JD Tan's Facebook page. So you want to get on those and watch them. Very informative. Last week we had discussions with principals, some principals in Clarendon, talking about preparation for virtual learning, as well as what is going on now. On Wednesday we'll have another session with more people, as well as tech people who come on and share their technology initiatives that can be very beneficial to schools all over. So it's various people we'll have on there. We have people from the ministry, people from JTA, coming on there and sharing ideas, principals, students, everybody will come on the EduTalk Diaspora Engagement on Wednesdays. Now, listen carefully. On Thursday of this week, we will have part 2 of Google for Parents, but it's extended to educators from all walks of life. It's Google for Educators and Google for Parents will be on Thursday at 7 p.m. Jamaica time, as well as there will be a Zoom session next week Sunday around at 4 p.m. Okay, so stay tuned for those. Look out for your the emails for them as we go through this week. Okay, we also, if you want to get more information, go on jdtan.org. That's jdtan.org for more information on all the seminars, all the sessions, including past activities that we have done, the Education Summit, e-learning summit that we have done, so you can recap on those and further information. Quite a few stuff we have going on there, okay, for everybody across the diaspora. Okay, now on November, this is very exciting because that's my alma mater, Catholic College of Mandeville, partnered with JD Tan to host their third early childhood education conference, okay? And that's in November, on the 4th and the 5th of November. And so we're gonna stream that live those 2 days, starting at 8:30 in the morning, going all the way back to about 3:30 in the afternoon. Quite a few sessions, similar to our Education Summit, as well as the e-learning summit. It's very exciting news. I can't wait because I've been to Catholic College, did my first degree in Catholic College, contributed to everything relating to my development, okay, as a teacher. And that's where I found the love for teaching, through Catholic College, and doing observations in Mandeville area. I love Mandeville. Okay, so stay tuned for that. There's some press releases coming out, as well as some notifications going around for you to register if you want to know, because you have to register, and you're going to get a certificate for that conference, the early childhood conference. CCM, Catholic College of Mandeville, in collaboration with JD Tan, putting it on with our many different partners, putting it on the 4th and the 5th of November. And there will be a certificate, but you have to register. For more information, everybody, go on jdtan.org for more information for that. All right? All right, we'll see you later this week with a virtual story time for students. If you have a child you want to be on virtual story time, then send us an email that you want your child to be on there, and we'll get them on there one of these weeks to be live to the world. You'll get a permission slip to fill out for them to be live, and then they'll come on the program and they can share their thoughts on questions and so on. If you want to be on the program on EduTalk on Wednesdays, even though the list might be long right now, you can send us an email, tell us what school or community you're from, and we'll get you situated on there, okay? Now, for all education task force members, you can do a Jaminar in your special area, just like myself or Dr. Barker or Mr. McNamee or Miss Winter or anybody, Ortavia, Manning Dixon too, anyone in the task force. If you want to do a Jaminar, you can do a Jaminar in your special area. We just have to have a proposal and vet the topic, make sure that it's relevant to the diaspora, and you're good to go, okay? We are here to help. We're here to fill gaps. We're here to support the educational development of our country and the region, because we have quite a few people right around the world supporting. And we support, they support, okay? We're all in this together. Okay, all right. So Dr. Barker, thank you so much. I will see you. I saw some great things you're doing over there, and we want you to share with the diaspora from your perspective. So we're gonna keep in touch.
No problem.
And how can I forget Dr. Barker? Dr. Barker has the education, he's the director for the education task force in the Middle East, the Middle East diaspora over there, JMED, Jamaica Middle East Diaspora. So he's the director for the education task force. So we have a very, very close relationship, like what you would refer to as our sister or brother organization.
Yes,
so we share that. So, yes. And Dr. Barker will be presenting in the Early Childhood Conference as well in November. We're looking forward to that because we have some tools that he will talk about too for early childhood. Very interesting. Right, Dr. Barker?
Yes, yes. Thanks for building that one up as well. So now my work is doubly harder. So
okay, okay. I wish you guys well in Jamaica. Just stay positive, keep calm, work hard. It's very difficult when you're coming into an area of technology that you're not understanding. But with technology, you can't make any mistakes, because with a mistake comes an opportunity. So technically, it's not really a mistake. It's a learning process. So do not give up, push forward, and help each other. Please do not keep the things that you learn by yourself, or else you'll be selfish. You don't want to be selfish. Share your ideas with everybody, and in that way you're pulling up everybody around you, and you grow your capacity as a leader in your own right. So do not keep anything to yourself. Share it so that others will benefit from that as well. Okay? All right. Take care, everybody, and have a great Sunday. I know it's almost done already. Have a great week. We'll see you soon later. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Dr. Barker. Take care. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you soon. Yes, yes.